Okay, it's March 11th, episode 10 of A Minute with Mud. Mud's Shattered Operating System Phase 3. I found a penny on the way here, and it reminded me of how every time I pick up a penny, Abraham Lincoln had said, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 4 of them sharpening the axe. So for all these years, I kept thinking, is my axe sharp enough? Can I do this? Well, recently, past month maybe, it's time. And also with 2020 being hindsight and imperfect vision, I've been projecting this for years now, so this year I'm going to work on building Planet Perfect Days and its revolutionary system that no one has even come close, but that hasn't actually happened the way that it could. So just to back up a little bit, when I was in my early 20s, I read a book called Living in the Field by Lynn McTaggart. She recently completed a book called The Power of Eight, which she describes how eight or more people in small groups focusing on the same thing, the manifestation of it, the Maharishi effect, is much greater. And the field is basically the 0 point field. I think the book's called The 0 Point Field or Living in the Field. And there's a mathematical equation that always ends up to 8 or to 0, and how Einstein had come up with it or something like that. And so we're all generally based on 0. There's been studies been done where particles that change also change the past particle, and how observation, the observer, changes the experiments. There's also, in that Living the Field, there's someone who was able to take pictures of seeds that show the full-grown plant just from the seed. That's also kind of like the Emoto experiment with the water, and how water was spoken on, or words were put on bottles, or music was played to it, and he would take and crystallize these waters and show pictures of them. And the one was I Want to Kill You actually looked like somebody shooting a gun, and that was Beethoven music was beautiful crystalline designs. So it's up to us and our creation together to do this. Let's see, what was I thinking about? I had gone to, this is the food pantry. It's my volunteer shirt that I'm very proud of, because you have to volunteer 5 times to get it, and I volunteer every now and then. It's good for my mental health, very good for my mental health. I really like helping other people. That's one of the most feel-good things, and I feel stifled, I feel suffocated living in a typical, normal day-to-day situation. And so I'm starting to come out of my cocoon and spread my wings again without being as aggressive and confrontational, because it's very easy to do, to just tell someone to fuck off or fuck you, what's wrong with you. So on that note, I had gone to an ICP concert once a long time ago, and we had our motorhome. Me and my ex-wife had our motorhome, and we filled it with all of us clown faces. And it was funny because how in the movies when they all pile out of the car, come out of the car, I remember it was in Salt Air in Utah, out by the desert, by the salt flats, and I remember drinking a beer. I was drinking a beer while we were driving, and the guard just waved me on, just like, fuck it. And when we all came out, everybody kind of laughed about it in that way. And I got to see Tech Nine, which makes my point, is he says, if your shit, you don't think your shit smells, I'm gonna cut your nose off and stick it up your ass so you can smell that shit, kind of thing. And that's how the Hyoka, the strongest empath, is sort of like, and that's what I was doing when I was drunk a lot and would go into the bars and mess with people. And I was banned from one bar, and then I got unbanned. And the reason I got banned was because the guy was kicking me out and I was lipping off, and so I left, and then when I opened the door, I had slammed the door back behind me and he ran into it. So I was banned for quite a few years, the Labor Club in Valley City. And then I got unbanned because Mark was his name. We made up and we were fine. And then one day when I was collecting signatures for these permission slips to collect cigarette butts off of their property, because I was collecting cigarette butts to recycle them, and they were like, wait, you're not supposed to be in here, a couple of people from back in the day. So I got rebanned for no reason, which is fine with me. I mean, being banned from a bar isn't such a end of the world situation. But during that time I had got a huge black bag of cigarette butts and 26 signatures from all the different stores, because I just wanted to make sure I didn't get, any trouble with anybody picking out the cigarette butts or emptying the containers. And that's kind of what I'm going to try to do around here. Probably Sunday or Monday, I'm going to begin that campaign for No Butts Left Behind, with TerraCycle.com to help recycle them, because most people don't even know you can recycle cigarette butts. It's kind of been a burden to where I've learned so many things and done information overload so many times, studied real deep underground knowledge, for a long time. I remember when I was 16, 17, I always wanted to be like, recycle, save the world, we can do better than this. And I remember when I was 18, after I got married, we got married when I was 18 and 16 because our dad caught a screw in. And, I had moved in week after I met her, so we were kind of bonded together from then because of the emancipation and me not wanting to deal with the parents. But anyway, I used to get mail-ordered information. Like, I would have to order stuff through the mail. I remember the internet just barely came out. That didn't just come out, but it was 2020 when the world was, or it was 2000, year 2000, when the world was supposed to end. And I remember we did a bunch of acid that night. And then we quit smoking, we quit drinking, we quit everything within a couple of days. And we stayed sober together for a couple of years. But the whole marriage thing was, we started to have expectations on each other, which kind of screwed things up. But we got I remember getting a Dell home computer with a big screen and everything. And it was buy one, get one. And so I gave one to my little brother and sister. But I used to order CDs off of eBay about underground information and all that. And so I started learning real young, so I've always constantly been searching. I remember trying to learn how to build underground houses, it's all kinds of stuff. So nowadays, as connected as we are, and it's a little difficult knowing these things and then knowing that they don't know them things, like being so aware. And I wish that I could download and upgrade certain people or implant things, or just I've done the speed reading, photo memory stuff. Some of it's helped. Other times I have refused to go into certain information because I just like that's too much. I'm not ready for that. I don't want to go there. That's with the human operating system from Ken Wilber and certain other things. I remember getting the book of The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. If you haven't ever checked that out, that's been a massive blessing on my life. It takes years and years and years of practice. It was part of the Toltec teachings, and it was just there at this Oasis store in Salt Lake. So got it. but that's changed my way of thinking quite a bit. And then the fifth agreement, which is be skeptical but learn how to listen. So it's kind of like the telepathic reading minds, like what is the real intent behind what people say. And that's helped me because I constantly get in these trauma bonding relationships, and I know it's probably because of the way I was raised, and with my mom and father not getting along at all, and me constantly searching for validation and love from my parents when they were not concerned. I was the oldest of my sister, and then when I was 7, my mom had a son, and then a couple years later, a daughter. And so that's just a little bit of backup. Okay, so when I went to my mom's after my PhD, leaving her to heal for a few months, I was constantly still searching for the purpose, still searching for that what really gets me going, and because it was no longer about making the millions of dollars to help people after I made the money. So it kind of fits with now and how I've been able to generate a system, designed a system to where the money isn't as important. That was the grand goal to begin with. So anyway, I was there with her in the basement, and she was very kind then to let me stay. I always walked on eggshells, though. I was always walking on eggshells as kind of that narcissistic sort of abuse thing. But I don't want to really get into that. The thing is okay, so I've learned about domains, domain naming, and domain brokering, and how much domain names could actually be worth. So I kept thinking, well, what if I get one and sell it? I'll make money to help people that way. There's all the online stuff, the cost per action, when you fill your name in that, and then little ads and stuff, people make like $1 to $2, $3 off of that. And then, the ads, most of the reason why everything's free is because of the ads, unless they charge you to not look at the ads. I mean, for real. It's so dehumanizing. Anyway, so then I did, the Ellie Gould song, Anything Could Happen. I thought Anything Could Happen might be available. It wasn't, but then I was like, fuck, life could happen, because I was so despondent, and it was available, so I bought, the .com.org, and they're available. I looked at it the other day, and the lifecouldappen.com's for sale for like $3,000 off of GoDaddy, but I didn't repay for that one. I got lifecouldappen.shop now, which was only $44 per year. I'm gonna be getting a small amount for taxes, because I actually did my taxes this year, because I wanted to see if maybe I could do a Pell Grant to do some education in Maryland, because that's where I want to go this year. I don't know why, some intuitive reason to go there. I mean, I like Stephen King, whatnot, but that's not the reason. It's just maybe come from the future, Back to the Future thing, Terminator situation. I don't really know. So I did my taxes after like 15 years. I haven't done them, and I was like, well, I claimed exempt. What is that? I shouldn't get anything back, but with the credits and things, I get a little bit back. So then I'm gonna do a year's worth of hosting, and once I have my hosting paid up, then I can work on building the affiliate store, and 100% of the proceeds go into the Garden of Harmony account. I'll have to be fully transparent. There's no way it would work. I have to be just as accountable and authentic with the system as anyone, because I don't want to be one of those CEOs who's like, oh, well, I got a bonus and all that bullshit. I'm not interested in money very much at all. I want to just see us working together, and money's not going to do it for us. It really is not. Okay, so anyway. And then after lifecouldappen.com, I got really inspired. So I started asking people, what do you think about lifecouldappen.com? Just wondering about their opinions and stuff. And that was in Valley City. And then I was like, well, I'm going out west. I'm going west on a dream. So I decided I was going to go to Vancouver, Washington, because weed was legal there. And So I moved out there on the first night I got off the bus. Everybody's like, don't go, you don't know anybody there. Well, it was one of those major risks, just risk it and go and trust my angels. Well, when I got there, I met somebody and he told me a little spot to sleep kind of by the shelter. And it was right next to the Columbia River, so it was really nice. I had my emergency blanket and a tent and things, and so I was fine. And then the next day I was turning in my application to volunteer at the shelter, and someone drove by with a couple of trees in the back of a truck, this old dude, and he's like, hey, do you want to make some money, help me plant these trees? And I was like, okay, as long as you can bring me to the volunteer place, because I was waiting at the bus station. And he, so I put my application in, and then he said, well, do you want to live? I have a shed, or I have an ice house. He started showing me around. He's like, you can stay with me, you can work with me. And I could obviously tell he was homosexual, and I didn't want to get too involved with that kind of business again. So, I always told my exes that I'm like 20% gay, because that's all. I'm not, and I said a big reason why is because I was already sexual enough. If I wanted both sex, if I was bi or anything like that, then that's all I would think about. And anyway, I was like, no. But then he showed me this ice house next to this waterfall that was all broken, all weeded, and it was by the Salmon Creek. Yeah, something like that, Salmon Creek. And I was like, what about this place? So I thought, well, I'll live in there. I'll work for you. It was landscaping. I'll do that. And he's like, okay. And so I started clearing it out. He said it would be okay if I cleared it out and fixed it up. So I did. And that was when I did my first video on Wish Lights in the Sky Festival, which was supposed to be a fundraiser. And, nothing that major really happened. So I was doing landscaping with him, drinking a lot at this place called the Ice House Bar, where, it was for social reasons, because I didn't want to be around him. He was a little bit creepy. So anyway, there was one incident in that bar where this guy, Smurf, they called him, he was kind of mental and bald and short and stout, and one day I was like, I want to sell lifecouldappen.com for $100 million. I want to give 80 back to charity and 10% back to education and all this, and then keep 10 million. I was hoping that was what I was hoping for, because I wanted it to be like a statement. But plans have changed a whole lot since then. And he headbutted me pretty hard, actually, just out of the blue. He's like, get the fuck out of my town, and headbutted me. I remember having my roofing knife in my pocket, and I was that close to gutting this guy, and I really didn't want to hurt anybody else, but I was that close. Anyway, somebody came out, and it got broken up, because I was like, dude, what the fuck. But anyway, the place I lived in was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, that architecture guy that does the glass house stuff, and it was amazing. It was like a maze. The house was. It was very beautiful. There was a salmon log. Like it was fascinating. Next to a bridge. Vancouver is a beautiful town. I was a little ways away from the university, around there was great. Downtown was amazing, quiet. It was very interesting to see how you cross the bridge, you go into Portland, and it was like all this metropolis. But then in Vancouver, it was like the small town of that area. Anyway, he had horses, and he used to do show horses, so we would take care of them every day after work and feed them and stuff, and he taught me a little bit about that. But one of his horses miscarriaged, and then he had to take the horse to a show, and he said he couldn't afford to take me with, but I think he just wanted me to be out because we had drank a couple times together, and my drinkingness is really, when they say Scorpios are intense, Well, my intensity was massive, so it kind of worried him. And then anyway, so I was like, well, I had made a friend that was from the war, the Iraqi war, and him and his roommate, they both, this cool guy, and I met him on Craigslist, and he brought me to Aurora, where I got to see the Goonies house and spend a little bit of time there. It was a pretty cool town, Aurora, or Astoria, and I asked him if he would be able to drive me to Hood River, because I guess, I don't know why, I just chose that place, on Valentine's Day. And so we're driving there, and it's a little ways away, couple hours from Vancouver, and he had stopped to buy some marijuana chocolates in the heart shapes and everything, and he's like, this is for my husband. And I had visited him multiple times. I trimmed, that was the first time I trimmed weed with him, with anyone, and I was like, wow, this plant, even if I had never smoked weed, it was crystals and rainbow colors, and and I mean, I was still pretty vulnerable from the coma. I still didn't quite get it or anything. Anyway, so then he told me that, and I was like, "What? You guys are together?" Like, these guys were like the best, closest dudes, friends. They were both in the war, and they both had mental health issues from that, PTSD from it. He was a driver, so he got to see a lot of the IUD stuff, and so I was just quite fascinated that they had such a close relationship, and I never realized it. But he's an amazing dude, Jordan, I think his name was, and anyway, he dropped me off in Hood River at one of the churches, and I stayed that first night. And then the next night, I was like, "Well, where do you get any weed from here? And where's a good place to stay? Tell me about this place." And then I met my friend Charlie, and Charlie was a 50-some-year-old Greenpeace activist, big, tall, strong dude, that was all about gardening. He loved gardening and heirloom seeds and all that kind of stuff. And I think he had some kind of issues with his ex-wife, and he had a couple of kids. I remember it was like Forest and Ocean, or some kind of natural names for the kids. But he showed me a place, and so I bunked with him in a tent. Well, a wrapped up tent, because somebody had stolen all my stuff from the church. The pastor actually threw the stuff away, so I barely got some of my stuff back, just because I was letting it sit there for a minute. So they're very prejudiced in that town. I guess like 40 million or so was donated every year to charities. There was a tiny food bank, and it was all organic foods. I mean, it was a very wealthy neighborhood with only like 10 homeless people, and so that was interesting. Very beautiful town. You have the gorge part of it right next to the Columbia River. It's one of the windsurfing capitals of the world. And anyway, Charlie, I started volunteering at the senior center, and I had done a lot of work there. And somebody had one day I painted the place and did a lot of yard work and just volunteering, and somebody said they made an anonymous donation for me, and I was like, what? Khalees, she was the executive director at the time, and she's like, yeah, somebody, they didn't, I never did find out who, but she said, well, what does he need? Because I didn't care about money, I didn't want the money, and she said, well, he needs contacts, because I didn't have any contacts, I couldn't see, and somebody had donated an exam and 6 months worth of contacts for me. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I met a really cool buddy that he was always there, Gene. He got me back into reading. It was The Art of Growing Up was the book he gave me. And I actually read it, and I thought, wow, okay, well, I'll get back into these. And I'm more into audiobooks now. Because there was a thrift store below the senior center. And then I met a couple of older women that I started doing gardening with and there's an amazing garden on the edge of the Hood River Cliff with like volcanic soil and just all the flowers. And so I would weed and help out with her and mow the lawn or mow the grass part because they had cows, and her husband had heart issues. He was a good guy. They were just, I don't understand how it goes, but those certain people that just always doing their rich business stuff, and it's always from prejudice. I was just weirded out by it. And Deanna, she calls once in a while, wishing me happy birthday and things. Always wants me to go back because she can't find a good gardener. But so that's how I made some funds. And then I met on the trails there. I had my own little spots and stuff. And I remember asking Moses, I asked him where a good place would be, and it was like 45-minute walk out of town. Beautiful railroad tracks, everything up on a cliffside next to the Hood River fire campground. I mean, we made our little hut up there. And then I met someone, not sure how to label her. She was definitely like a medicine woman, dreamer girl. And I was 33 at the time, and she was 17, but we ended up together. And I remember meeting her that first time with Charlie, and I had this gut feeling like this is not going to end up good, or one of those have to go back to these painful situations in order to gather the lessons again. I don't get why or how, because I constantly say no. I'm constantly like, no. Like, I know it's not good for me, I don't want to do this, and then I get pressured. So it takes two. Anyway, so then we ended up together, and then it was a lot of like, you pedophile type of guy, but my mentality wasn't even there. It was weird. Plus, she was a Pisces, so it was in alignment with my ex-wife, so I think that had some to do with it. And after a while of sleeping in, she kept on lying and saying a lot of things to try and get in my good graces, plus that, her mom knows that she was out and I had no idea, honestly no idea that anybody could be lying about these things. So I believed her. I trusted that her mom knew where she was, all that kind of thing, and she did it. But then when she did find out, that was the heat was put on me a few times, but then her mom just invited me to live with her in their apartment. So I lived there for like a year and a half with them, and that was a great experience. I mean, I always loved them people. Her brothers, they were all named after precious gems. And, there was drama here, the drama there. She was part Latino, half Latino, and her father had gone to prison for drugs and certain rape situation where he tried to stop his brother from raping a girl, and he still got charged with it. So he's out now. I never did get to meet him. I don't know how well of a picture that she had painted for me. We still talk now and then, every once in a while, but I think she's still got a lot of issues. I believe today's even her birthday, or or is it the 12th? No, 11th. Tomorrow is her birthday. So that was an interesting experience being with an 18, 19, up until I think she turned 20. I think we were together that long, off and on. I had a lot of narcissistic, a lot of lies, a lot of trauma bonding again, and I kept on trying to say no, but again, just had to learn these lessons over and over and over. And I'm done with that. I can't do that anymore. I'm sharing it to get rid of it, let people know that these things happen. So when I got an apartment we got an apartment in Valley City, and we were both on the lease. I was working, doing construction, building a condo, doing framing. I liked framing. That was good. And I think she was doing some, I don't remember that well. But I wanted to be done, so I was like, well, we're going to move in separate rooms. She didn't want to move out of the bedroom. I wanted to stay in the bedroom. We were arguing. I kept telling her, you're not even on the lease, and even though she was. And just back and forth, narcissistic situations going on there, I believe. I'm not sure. Some kind of trauma bonding and learning lessons, because she had been sexually abused at a very, very young age, and her father had gone to prison at a very, very young age. So I was kind of the fall guy again. I've been a great fall guy. I'm good with that, and that goes along with there's a story about Scorpios being the revealer of light when they show the narcissist that they're narcissistic. I'll share that video. It's a good one, and I think that's partially why the truth part of it, where you really can't bullshit the Scorpio person's, I don't know the thing, unless they're gone in a coma. I don't know, because they have seen the underground. They've seen the dark, gone very, very deep. So we got into a domestic, and that was genuine. It wasn't me trying to hurt her, but it was more of a teaching of the lessons kind of thing. And it's all wrong, all of it's wrong. But I owned up to it. So then that's when I went to, and then I was breaking up with her and moving into another relationship with someone who introduced me to meth. And so that was a tough situation. I'll have to share that one, the next one. It was a great, but beautiful tragedy. And so, but yeah, I spent 26 days in jail. And that's when I realized that clearing my body, because they don't feed you very much, and I had been drinking a whole lot of water because I got work release and I wanted to be able to pass a piss test so that I could go out and do work, even though I chose not to. Instead, I took notes on it was something about worry, Dale Carnegie books, the real old ones. It was How to Win Friends and Influence People, and How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, and Og Mandino was the greatest businessman in the world, and what was it? Benjamin Franklin's journal lessons, and I remember I read the Stars one, that John Green book, We Are from the Stars, or was it like a romantic comedy thing, or like a sadness about disabled people, a girl that was dying. So that's what I did. I just spent my days taking notes, and drinking a lot of water, and sleeping it off. And by the time I got out of jail, I was 180 pounds, healthy, didn't know why or how. It was a lot of pain from the healing. But then my most recent ex at the time, she started feeding me wrong foods again. It's like when you quit drinking and you're hanging out with people that drink, they want you to drink too, so they don't feel as bad about themselves, or you're bringing light to their insecurities or what they're doing wrong and they don't want to stop, that kind of thing. Well, that happened with the food, and so I started to get sick again. My stomach started getting screwed up again. That was way before the humanworm.com cleanse, which the FDA shut down because it probably worked. That's probably why they shut them down. Other than it probably wasn't a regulated facility. Something might have had to do with that. But the stuff worked, okay? It cleared me out. Deworming kind of thing. And that's sort of what the winter is too. This SAD situation, I think it has a lot to do with our bacteria and being only 10% human cells. Our bacteria, the worms, the parasites, the viruses, all the things that make up our human body, if we're unhealthy, which most of the time we are because we don't eat right and things like that. If we're 90% bacteria and even more DNA than that, like 900% DNA of bacteria, of things that aren't human, that we're not able to own as a human being, because there's only a certain amount of human cells in us. All of that sort of changes our way of thinking and actions and all of that. So, I don't know what I was going to say there, other than take care of your bodies. Bodies aren't even ours. That's really still a tough one to get. The cognitive bias is a huge one on that one. That's like when you smoke, even though you know you're not supposed to smoke, that kind of thing. But I remember I had quit smoking because I was in jail for that long, and I didn't have to go to jail either. I could have done a plea agreement and just paid a fine, but I wanted to go to jail. I honestly wanted to go because I felt like I owed it to myself to make amends for the real asshole I had been to my ex-wife. Growing up, being sick, polluted, and suicidal, and just psycho dude. I don't know how my good heart must have kept me through, because she used to say I was like Hitler or Jesus, and so we're all raised different, and I hope that ends. This generational curse, to me, is probably going to be over now. Now it's over. I'm not going to go through it again. So that was a trauma bonding situation, and a lot of good times in Hood River, though. A lot of good times. Me and my buddy Eli, or Moses was his name. He's like 14, and I remember him and his brother. His brother was traveling off doing busking, and he had told me about how they were supposed to be aborted, and their parents were like high-class skiers, and so using meth, and so they hated them. I hope everything went well now. I know Eli's probably like 20 or something now. That was that experience. Just a lot of beautiful countryside, and doing my best to keep building things. But in Vancouver, when I was living with the gay guy in the Frank Lloyd Wright house, I remember watching a commercial about the Army of One, and I thought, well, what about an army of love? Like, I was that humanitarian. It was my second phase when I moved to Vancouver. I was healthy, bright blue eyes. I was good on this dream, and it was my second phase of my real humanitarian efforts. Like, just go all out again. And so I was like, an army of love, and then I was like, wait a minute, what about a Good Hearts Army? So I purchased goodheartsarmy.com during that time, and now that one's for sale right now because I got gharmy.us. So if anybody wants that, I've listed it. I listed it on GoDaddy. So then and then throughout the times of being homeless in the hills there, I did waterboarding. That was fun, where you tie a rope to a tree, and then there's like a waterboard, and the rapids on the river, and so that was pretty cool. I got up the first time, but it was really hard to balance, so I fell off. But there was a lot of these people doing camping next to the river there, and they were playing music and a midnight campfire. And I thought, what about people that are doing good deeds, or good-hearted people? What about that for the Good Hearts Army? So that kind of became that idea. I know I have a few videos I haven't uploaded on the PP Days playlist for the times that I've tried to explain it, because it's such an in-depth project. Moonshots is what they call them. So yeah, that was a lot of those years. And then I ended up, I think, living with my mom again. Yes, I was. And then I had blacked out drunk, and I guess I had punched my younger one, and I didn't remember it. I thought, what the shit? You actually punched her? And so I really had a problem. So I stopped drinking again as best I could. But I think it was very short-lived. And so I decided to just be done with that relationship. It was really hard to get over it. Like I said, I was probably like a teen mentality. And, one thing that led to that argument, I remember, was when I picked up her phone to check what time it was. There was a dick picture on it. And I thought, what is this? She had cheated on me a whole bunch of times. It was just, I couldn't understand that I was being used. And I'm not going to be used any longer. Never, never, never again. I didn't use these people. And my light got drained every time. So I'm able to recognize it now. Like last year. But I'll share more about that later. So I'm going to sign off on this one. I know it's a lot longer, but I want to get this done with. I want to get it over with so that I can start sharing my ideas and start doing my campaigns and really, really going after the building of what I believe I've been put here to do, to create a system of business and nature and create as much harmony as possible. I was astonished when every time I'd have a problem, and it takes sometimes years just to figure out these problems of how would that work and how would that work. And I remember someone once when we were doing meth a long time back, and he was like, how can you pay people for doing good deeds? And I was crushed. I was just floored, like shit, everything I've been trying to do. But I let it go, and the guy's kind of an asshole anyway, bragging about how he ruined Mud's dream. And most people that know me know that I used to talk about it 24/7, like all the time. If ever somebody hears the words Project Planet Perfect Days or PP Days, they're just like automatically shut off, because I would bounce the reflections off of these people. So they helped me build it. Their light helped create it, just the same as anyone's opinions after I'd interview them. And only one person in Vancouver said that lifecouldappen.com was an abortion situation. So I was grateful for that. Anyway, I'm done talking right now. At the Red Raven, I got my Hard Times coffee, which is like espresso and Americana. I finally used my punch card. So that'll be tomorrow's video. Peace, love, blessings. I hope that this new full moon in the springtime treats us well and clears us, because I can notice on Facebook too, a lot of my friends have been going through a lot of things, which isn't that uncommon. I just can't be the support or the crutch or the peer support specialist kind of guy right now. I'm not able to. And besides, I think a lot of times me helping other people, it's been more of a codependency, like an addiction in a way of like, I love the giving. And to end this video, I'm going to talk about the law of one and raw. I am raw. And I'll post the video, but it really does talk about the third and fourth densities, and how the fifth density we get clear, and then the sixth density becomes harder again. But it has a lot to do, the fourth density has a lot to do with being of service. So I know there's tons of what I call guardian harmonizers out there that are doing good things. So I hope to meet many more of them. I'm getting my strength back. So peace, love, blessings, love, affection. peace, love, affection, blessings beyond blessings, and take care of yourselves and take care of others. My love.